House will come to order. The invocation today will be given by Reverend Aaron Fry from St. Thomas Lutheran Church in Trufant, guests of Representative Outman. Will members, staff, and guests in the gallery please rise?
Loving Father, I thank you for all the members and staff that are giving so much of themselves to this service that you have ordained for the good of our citizens. I thank you for this magnificent state and all the extraordinary people that make their home here. I thank you for the industries that provide us with so many useful goods, the farmers that provide such abundant food, and for the many, many service workers, public and private, who take care of need after need for all the beautiful families in all of our many communities. How good you have been to us. Let gratitude and love abound in the hearts of my brothers and sisters during this session today. Let your spirit of voluntary self-sacrifice, already so apparent here, abound all the more. Though the work is hard and the ramifications deeply significant, you can provide wisdom, clarity, kindness, humility, and yes, even joy in this labor. We boldly pray for these gifts, and that the result will be justice, goodness, and prosperity for each and every one of the precious children with which you have populated our state. This is your family, Father, though the trust within it has been strained by betrayal and deceit, though not by you. Give everyone here a deep appreciation of the forgiveness with which you have met our pasts, that these hearts may be lifted up and all eyes turned to you to boldly pursue the paths of our Father and our Savior, the God who himself is love. Amen.
The clerk will open the board for the purpose of taking attendance. Members may check in at your desk. For the purpose of an introduction, the speaker recognizes Representative Bierlein.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today, joining myself, Representative Alexander, Representative Green, from Tuscola County, we have 10 clerks. Melissa Piles from Watertown, Katie Gebert from Fairgrove Township, our county clerk, Jody Fetting, Penny Renas from Novesta Township, Diana Spencer from Guilford, Mary Lemke from the city of Vassar, and then joining us in the gallery, we also have Susie Rockwell from Ellington, Melissa Kelly from Coyleton, Shelley Hicks from Tuscola, and Colleen Russell from Fairgrove.
Will the special guests of Representative Bierlein, Green, and Alexander please rise? Welcome to the Michigan House of Representatives.
For the purposes of an introduction, the chair recognizes Representative Miller.
Hello, everyone. Let's give a warm welcome to Edgemont Elementary, who's here visiting us in the gallery. We have 15 adults and 26 students. Welcome.
Will the special guest of Representative Miller please rise? Welcome to the Michigan House of Representatives. For the purposes of an introduction, the chair recognizes Representative Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I have with me very special guests today in the gallery. They are representatives of Beat the Streets Detroit. For many of us in our communities, we know that we have children struggling through poverty, addiction, and problems at home. Everyone has had that kid that they know if that kid found a sport and a coach that believed in them. Beat the Streets Detroit offers tutoring, STEM and wellness programs, and is actually getting to these kids so that these kids defy the odds and that they actually do beat the streets. So with me here today in the East Gallery, I have Joseph Russo, Danny Lugo, and Benny Gomez.
Will the special guest of Representative Thompson please rise and welcome to the Michigan House of Representatives. For the purposes of an introduction, the chair recognizes Representative Aragona.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, it is my distinct honor to welcome a friend of mine to the House floor, the Honorable Representative Emeritus, Rocky Ryzkowski, who was the floor leader here 23 years ago this year. Please welcome Representative Rocky Ryzkowski.
Welcome back, former Representative Majority Floor Leader Ryzkowski.
Speaker recognizes Minority Floor Leader Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to excuse Representatives Breen, Farhat, Herzberg, Myers, Phillips, and Whitsett.
Without objection, so ordered. The clerk will close the board, tally, display, and announce today's attendance.
Madam Speaker, a quorum of the House is present. There are no members absent with prior excuse.
Will members, staff, and guests in the gallery please rise and join me now in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For the purposes of an introduction, the Speaker recognizes Representative DeSena.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to introduce my special guest today, a former school board member of Highland Park, Mark Price.
Special guest of Representative DeSena, please rise and welcome to the Michigan House of Representatives. For the purposes of a staff farewell, the Speaker recognizes Minority Floor Leader Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today about the service of Samantha Finjap, who served in my office since the beginning of this year. a student who graduated Michigan State University and is now departing us. She has been invaluable to the operations of the minority office and ensuring that each day we are meeting the needs of the constituents and the members of the floor. We did a brief exit interview today to talk about the skills that she's continued to develop and sharpen here in the House, and I believe that it's always illuminating to see what young people observe about this chamber, and I thank her for her contributions to the office as well as our own professional development. So thank you, Samantha Finjap, for your service to the state of Michigan.
Colleagues, please join me in thanking Samantha for her service to the Michigan House of Representatives. Speaker recognizes Majority Caucus Chair Borton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Attention, Republican members. We have a Republican caucus in the Republican caucus room. Republican members, a Republican caucus is now in the Republican caucus room.
Speaker recognizes Democratic Caucus Chair Young.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Democratic colleagues, we have a caucus in the Democratic caucus room. Caucus in the Democratic caucus room. Thank you.
The House will go at ease at the call of the chair.
The House come to order and proceed to announce by the clerk of printing and enrollment.
The clerk announced the following bills will be produced and made available electronically on Wednesday, May 21st. House Bills 4505 through 4519.
Reports of standing committees.
The Committee on Government Operations, Representative Gould, Chair, reported House Bill 4303 without amendment with recommendation the bill pass.
Bill referred to the order second reading of bills.
The Committee on Government Operations, Representative Gould, Chair, reported House Bill 4390 without amendment and with recommendation the bill pass.
Bill referred to the order second reading of bills.
Committee on Government Operations, Representative Gould, Chair, reported House Bill 4391 with recommendation of the bill referred to Committee on Rules.
Bill referred the order to the Committee on Rules.
The Committee on Rules, Representative Schuette, Chair, reported House Bill 4113 without amendment with recommendation the bill pass.
Bill referred to the order second reading of bills. Introduction of bills. Thanks.
Representative Snyder offers House Bill 4520, a bill to create a program to designate certain campuses at institutions of higher education in the state as hunger-free campuses. People of the state of Michigan enact.
Will be considered our first time by its title, referred to the Committee on Education and Workforce.
Representative Vanderwall offers House Bill 4521, a bill to amend an act to award tuition grants to resident students enrolled in independent nonprofit institutions of higher learning. People of the State of Michigan enact.
Will be considered our first time by its title, referred to the Committee on Appropriations.
Representative Bruck offers House Bill 4522, a bill to amend the Michigan Vehicle Code. People of the State of Michigan enact.
Will be considered our first time by its title, referred to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure.
Representative Wozniak offers House Bill 4523, a bill to amend the Estates and Protected Individuals Code. People of the State of Michigan enact.
Will be considered our first time by its title, referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Representative Wozniak offers House Bill 4524, a bill to amend an act to define a marketable record title to an interest in land. People of the State of Michigan enact.
Will be considered our first time by its title, referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Representative Leitner offers House Bill 4525, a bill to amend the Code of Criminal Procedure. People of the State of Michigan enact.
Will be considered our first time by its title, referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Representative Wirtz offers House Bill 4526, a bill to amend the Uniform Condemnation Procedures Act. People of the State of Michigan enact.
Will be considered our first time by its title, referred to the Committee on Energy. Announcements by the clerk.
Received from the Auditor General a copy of Performance Audit on Handling and Safeguarding of Physical Media and Devices, Computer Crimes Unit, Michigan Department of State Police, May 2025.
The House will stand at ease. For the purposes of an introduction, the chair recognizes Representative Fairbairn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have 40 young adults from the Associated Builders and Contractors of Michigan in the West Gallery. Please say hi to them.
With special guest Representative Fairbairn, please rise. Welcome to the House of Representatives. For the purposes of an introduction, the chair recognizes Representative Shriver.
We've got 22 students and 13 adults from Washington, Michigan in the West Gallery from Indian Hills Elementary.
The special guest Representative Shriver, please rise and welcome to the Michigan House of Representatives. For the purposes of an introduction, the chair recognizes Representative Maddock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to say what an honor it is to address the rostrum today. It's also an honor to introduce. We have a total of 9 adults from White Lake in the West Gallery from Lakeland High School and 21 students.
Will the special guest of Representative Maddock please rise? Welcome to the Michigan House of Representatives.
House will come to order. Speaker recognizes Majority Floor Leader Posthumus.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House proceed to the order of motions and resolutions to suspend Rule 71 in order to take up House Resolution 117.
The Majority Floor Leader moves to suspend Rule 71. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. Rule 71 is suspended. Speaker recognizes Majority Floor Leader Posthumus.
Continuing on the order of motions and resolutions, I move that the House take up House Resolution 117.
Without objection, so ordered. The clerk will read.
House Resolution number 117, introduced by Representative DeBoyer, a resolution to hold Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson and the Department of State in civil contempt of the Michigan House of Representatives.
Speaker recognizes Representative Sternaglew.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in opposition to this resolution. In Michigan, the sanctity of our elections is under assault, not by foreign adversaries or cyber attacks, but by elected officials who persist in...
Representative, you are out of order. Speaker recognizes Representative Sternaglew.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In a time when we need more clerks and election workers, these dedicated public servants face unprecedented levels of threats and harassment. Our Secretary of State has supplied thousands of documents, investing hundreds of hours of staff time and who knows how much in taxpayer dollars in response to numerous requests for documents, many of which are already publicly available with a simple Google search. The only documents that have not been produced are the ones being reviewed for sensitive information that could compromise the security and integrity of our elections. We must stand united in defense of our democratic institutions and reject this dangerous resolution. The integrity of our elections depends upon it. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative DeBoyer.
Thank you, Speaker. It actually is a rather sad day for the state of Michigan. We have a structure in place in the state of Michigan that provides for checks and balances. We have constitutional provisions and we have statutory provisions that provide for the oversight of agencies, departments, and other types of entities within the state, specifically by the legislature. We also have provisions in statute that provides for the legislature to determine whether or not a committee would be able to subpoena documents. We did that. We did that in accordance with the laws of the state of Michigan. And unfortunately, we have a Secretary of State who made a determination without authority that they do not have to comply with a subpoena that was legally and appropriately conveyed to them. That, Madam Speaker, is a threat to our structure. That is a threat to our integrity, and that is a threat to what the people of the state of Michigan expect. The Secretary of State's office is no different than any other department within the state of Michigan. The statute is crystal clear. When a subpoena is issued, they must provide documents. They must provide testimony. That has been stonewalled for 7 months. We've been extremely patient. We've reached out with olive branches, offered an opportunity to have a discussion with members of oversight with regard to documents that have been claimed to be privileged. Unfortunately, they did not take us up on that. So at this moment, I believe there is no other path than introducing a resolution to allow this chamber to consider whether the Secretary of State should be held in contempt. And I am certain that we are within the law. I am certain that we are within provisions that the people of the state of Michigan desire and want out of their government. We shall not move in a direction that erodes the items in which we hold so dear. And I would ask members of this body to support the resolution in a manner to establish that fact. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Speaker recognizes Minority Floor Leader Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a parliamentary inquiry as to what rule or Mason's Manual requirement there is to pass a resolution to initiate legal action against a department of the executive branch.
The House will go at ease of the call of the chair. The House will come to order. Representative, this is a business resolution that we are addressing just as we would with any other business resolution properly before the House. Speaker recognizes Majority Floor Leader Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I request a record roll call.
Speaker recognizes Representative Posthumus.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I request a record roll call vote on this resolution.
Representative Posthumus requests a record roll call vote. Is the demand supported? The demand is supported. A record roll call vote has been ordered. All those in favor of the resolution will vote aye. Those opposed, nay. The clerk will open the board. The clerk will close the board, tally, display, and announce the vote.
Madam Speaker, on the question of adoption of House Resolution 117, there are 58 aye votes and 47 nay votes.
A majority of the members elected present having voted in favor, therefore, the resolution is adopted. Speaker recognizes Majority Floor Leader Posthumus.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House proceed to the order of second reading of bills to take up calendar item number 18, House Bill 4189.
Without objection, so ordered. The clerk will read.
Calendar item number 18, House Bill 4189, introduced by Representative Wolford, a bill to amend the Michigan Memorial Highway Act. The people of the state of Michigan enact.
The bill will be considered read for a second time by its title. Are there amendments? There being no amendments, the question before the House is advancing the bill to the order of third reading. Hearing no objection, the bill is on third reading. Speaker recognizes Majority Floor Leader Posthumus.
Continuing on the order of second reading of bills, I move that the House take up House Bill 4113.
Without objection, so ordered. The clerk will read.
House Bill 4113, introduced by Representative Steckloff, a bill to amend the Michigan Liquor Control Code of 1998. People of the state of Michigan enact.
The bill will be considered read for a second time by its title. Are there amendments? There being no amendments, the question before the House is advancing the bill to the order of third reading. Hearing no objection, the bill is on third reading. Speaker recognizes Majority Floor Leader Posthumus.
Continuing on the order of second reading of bills, I move that the House take up calendar item number 22, House Bill 4114.
Without objection, so ordered. The clerk will read.
Calendar item number 22, House Bill 4114, introduced by Representative Kuhn, a bill to amend the Michigan Liquor Control Code of 1998. People of the state of Michigan enact.
The bill will be considered read for a second time by its title. Are there amendments? There are. The clerk will read.
The Committee on Regulatory Reform, Representative Aragona Chair, recommends the adoption of substitute H1.
The question is on the adoption of the substitute. The clerk will open the board. The substitute is adopted. Are there further amendments? There being no further amendments, the question before the House is advancing the bill to the order of third reading. Hearing no objection, the bill is on third reading. Speaker recognizes Majority Floor Leader Posthumus.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House proceed to the order of third reading of bills and take up calendar item number 6, House Bill 4101.
Without objection, so ordered. The clerk will read.
Calendar item number 6, House Bill 4101, introduced by Representative Bierlein, a bill to amend the Public Health Code. People of the State of Michigan enact.
The bill will be considered read for a third time by its title. Are there amendments? There are not. There being no amendments, the question before the House is the passage of the bill. A record roll call vote is required. All those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed, nay. The clerk will open the board. Speaker recognizes Minority Floor Leader Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to excuse Representative Edwards.
Without objection, so ordered. Members, the board is still open. You may vote at your desks. The clerk will close the board, tally display, and announce the vote.
Madam Speaker, on the question of final passage of House Bill 4101, there are 103 aye votes and 2 nay votes.
A majority of the members elected and serving having voted in favor, therefore, the bill has passed. Speaker recognizes Majority Floor Leader Posthumus.
Continuing on the order of third reading of bills, I move that the House take up calendar item number 3, House Bill 4380.
Speaker recognizes Majority Floor Leader Posthumus.
I move for immediate effect.
The Majority Floor Leader moves for immediate effect. All those in favor will rise. Immediate effect is ordered. Speaker recognizes Majority Floor Leader Posthumus.
Continuing on the order of third reading of bills, I move that the House take up calendar item number 3, House Bill 4380.
Without objection, so ordered. The clerk will read.
Calendar item number 3, House Bill 4380, introduced by Representative Bierlein, a bill to amend the Public Health Code. People of the State of Michigan enact.
The bill will be considered read for a third time by its title. Are there amendments? There being no amendments, the question before the House is the passage of the bill. A record roll call vote is required. All those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed, nay. The clerk will open the board. The clerk will close the board. Representatives, okay. The clerk will tally, display, and announce the vote. Oh. Representative Tisdale votes aye. The clerk will tally, display, and announce the vote.
Madam Speaker, on the question of final passage of House Bill 4380, there are 103 aye votes and 2 nay votes.
A majority of the members elected and serving having voted in favor, therefore, the bill has passed. Speaker recognizes Majority Floor Leader Posthumus.
Move for immediate effect.
The Majority Floor Leader moves for immediate effect. All those in favor will rise. Immediate effect is ordered. Speaker recognizes Majority Floor Leader Posthumus.
Continuing on the order of third reading of bills, I move that the House take up calendar item number 4, House Bill 4066.
Without objection, so ordered. The clerk will read.
Calendar item number 4, House Bill 4066, introduced by Representative Wolford, a bill to amend the revised school code. People of the state of Michigan enact.
The bill will be considered read for a third time by its title. Are there amendments? There are not. Speaker recognizes Representative Kolazar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Permission to speak to the entire package.
So ordered.
Thank you. I'm in strong opposition to these bills for so many reasons, but I want to begin by telling you about a conversation I had just this week. During a visit to my old high school where I taught, I had the chance to speak with a teacher, and he's also a coach, who asked me if we were still going to work on a transgender youth and sports bill. When I told him it was likely to come up this week, he said, and I quote, "Stop wasting your time on that and do things that actually help us." And I could not agree more. Madam Speaker, multiple studies, and I mean multiple studies, have shown us that the transgender community is at a dramatically increased risk of suicide. This legislation will further isolate and ostracize a group of children and adolescents that are at an already increased risk of suicide. Make no mistake, Madam Speaker, this legislation and the rhetoric that surrounds it could get somebody killed. How dare we? I coached middle school cross country for 10 years, the boys team and the girls team. In my experience, I found that joining these teams wasn't about some distant college scholarship or gaining a competitive edge. It was about trying something new, making new friends, and finding a sense of belonging as a part of a team. These bills rob the kids of the very thing they seek, community. If passed, this legislation would also invite people to question the gender of girls who don't look stereotypically feminine, leading to more harassment and bullying. We have already seen this impact begin to play out in states that have adopted sports ban type policies. For example, a female basketball player in Utah faced a slew of online hate after a Republican official falsely accused her of being transgender because of her larger build. This humiliation could happen to female athletes because their height, hair length, athletic build, or even how they dress, allowing a stranger to call for a quote-unquote gender check on any girl who wants to play sports. Participating in sports teaches important values like perseverance, dedication, self-assurance, and teamwork. We should want more young people to play sports, not put up more barriers for girls that subject them to invasive interrogation or make them risk public ridicule in order to join a sports team. Finally, I want to address what I have heard from one of the bill's sponsors as well as proponents of this legislation, that these bills are overwhelmingly popular. While I strongly question the framing and the nuance of the referenced poll, if there are members of this chamber that are voting for this bill because they perceive it as popular, I want to remind them of a quote by Albert Einstein. What is right is not always popular, and what is popular is not always right. This legislation is state-sanctioned bullying. I urge my colleagues to do what is right, regardless of political agenda, and vote no. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Wooden.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Permission to speak to the whole package?
So ordered.
Thank you. As we consider this legislation, I cannot help but think of the nearly 50 years it took to expand our Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act to include the LGBTQ community. And just 2 years after its passage, we are considering legislation to roll that back. Madam Speaker, the cause of justice is a relay race. And while I was not here for its passage, it is my duty to carry this baton with my colleagues and protect the progress that was made after nearly 50 years of struggle. Some may suggest that rolling back our civil rights laws here in Michigan is a price to pay when confronting who should play in youth sports. And while I cannot claim to be an expert in youth sports at all, because like most former student athletes, I was no star. In fact, as a rower in high school, the only record I held was the number of times I fell out of the boat. But I do know that less than half a dozen young persons have obtained any waivers from the MHSSA for being trans in Michigan's history. I know thousands of young Michiganders compete in athletics every year, mostly to make friends, challenge themselves, and build resilience. I know trans kids are just like any other kid. I know families with trans kids are just like any other family. These bills do not address pressing issues affecting Michigan families and children every day. They don't deliver more funding to our public schools or help our parents struggling to pay the bills. The only things these bills do is strip kids of their civil rights and protections under Elliott Larson, opening kids of all kinds to bullying and targeting. And trans kids won't be the only ones singled out, as was the case last year in Utah, when a State Board of Education member publicly targeted a 16-year-old girl and accused her of being a trans athlete just because she didn't fit some kind of mold this politician felt girls had to be in. This bill opens up trans kids and kids across this country who do not fit someone's mold for bullying. And while I am not trans or a parent of a trans child, I do know what it's like to be bullied as a kid. I am sure that's something a lot of us in this floor have experienced at some point in our childhood. Growing up, I was often the target of bullying. I know what it's like to be singled out and ostracized. I know what it's like to fake being sick to avoid another day at school because you just need a break from it. I know what it's like to consider the unthinkable when all you want to do is be a kid. But it was because of the community of friends I found through clubs and sports that I found the sense of belonging that I needed. As a father who wants every child protected from targeting and bullying, as a Christian whose Savior tells him to love justice and mercy and not use his words as a weapon, I cannot support these bills. But there is one thing I do know. If there's one thing I've learned about a bully, they're usually trying to distract themselves and others from their own problems. Because these bills are nothing more than a distraction, and trans kids are being used as political pawns. A distraction from the pain of our economic crisis, trickling down from a failing trade war and looming federal cuts.
Speaker recognizes Representative Wooden.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And so I urge a no vote on this package because adults shouldn't be bullying kids to distract us from real issues. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Shriver.
Thank you. Permission to speak to the entire package?
So ordered.
I rise today to urge the Michigan House to recognize the importance of maintaining gender-based divisions in high school sports as outlined in this resolution, or in this bill package, excuse me. My wife is a varsity girls soccer coach at Oxford High School. She has been a professional athlete as a soccer player. She's gone through her entire college career as a soccer player at Michigan State down the road. And she has counseled me on this bill. There is a common sense angle to this. Boys in boys sports, girls in girls sports. What happens frequently is, and this is the words of my wife, you have B team boys players who just can't quite make it to the A team. And that's okay. That's sports. There's value in not everybody gets a trophy. Not everybody gets to be on the A team. But what happens is you'll have B team boys who jump over into the A team girls league, and it's disrupting the entire fabric and integrity of our sports in Michigan. Just to provide an example, I ran the mile in middle school, and I wasn't the fastest, and this is just an example of the difference between the abilities of boys and the abilities of girls. The record for the mile is 4 0028 by Grant Fisher, Grand Blanc, 2015. The record for the girls' mile is 4:39:23, Hannah Meyer, Grosse Pointe South, 2013. Boys are 30 to 40 seconds faster, reflecting higher VO2 max and muscle efficiency. Title IX was an act of love signed into law by a beloved President, Richard Nixon, June 23rd, 1972. In order to uphold this act of love, I recommend a yes vote on this bill, and I strongly urge my colleagues to consider the ramifications of what a no vote would do to the integrity of our sports in Michigan for our girls. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Price.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Permission to speak to the package.
So ordered.
I rise today in strong opposition to House Bills 4066 and 4469. Madam Speaker, just last session, this chamber affirmed with a bipartisan voice its commitment to eradicating discrimination on the basis of gender identity or expression. The bills before us today would directly contradict that statement, enshrining into state law discrimination on the basis of gender. These bills are more than just yet another attempt to erase trans people from public life. They open our schools to legal and financial liability simply for recognizing and affirming the gender identity of their students. As a former high school teacher, I know that our schools must be places where our kids feel safe and secure. This legislation would completely undermine that goal. It would require our schools to act as adversaries to their students, denying trans kids, and quite honestly, all kids who may look different from their peers, the freedom and security that all kids deserve and are currently entitled to under state law. In effect, these laws would require our K-12 institutions to violate the rights of our children under threat of financial harm. And what's more, these bills offer no clear enforcement mechanism. By using phrases like knowingly allow regarding sex, this legislation assumes that school officials will work to ensure that all students present themselves in a way that this legislature declares appropriate. As a mother of 2 kids in middle school, I know, as many members in this chamber know, that the last thing that children need at that vulnerable age is to have their bodies subjected to the scrutiny of adults, much less to have them subjected to political attacks from their government. This isn't about protecting girls' sports or safety. It's about fear-mongering and division. It's government overreach at its worst. It is the duty of this legislature to ensure that Michigan remains a place where everyone, no matter their gender identity or expression, can live authentically. I urge a no vote on this harmful legislation. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Warts.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Permission to speak on the entire package?
So ordered.
As a mother of 2 sons and 2 daughters, a grandmother of a grandson and granddaughter, former educator, coach, and school board member, I rise today in strong support of House Bills 4066 and 4469. I rise on behalf of 2/3 of Americans who agree that we should base single-sex sports teams on biological sex. It's sometimes hard to comprehend that we are even having to debate this legislation today, yet here we are. It's true that many of us, myself included, are convicted because of our faith that biological sex is what makes us men and women. The book of Genesis describes how God created us in his image, male and female. But many Americans also hold this belief for scientific reasons, not just religious ones. Genetically, females have 2 X chromosomes, while males have 1 X and 1 Y. This scientific genetic difference affects more than just hormones and reproductive organs. It also affects physiological traits like muscle mass, bone density, brain size, and heart structure. Based on that science and logic, most Americans support basing single-sex sports teams on biological sex. Why? Because we understand that if not, when puberty kicks in, girls would never have a chance to compete or win in athletics. There's no way around the fact that boys are stronger and faster than girls. To let biological males compete against biological females strips away the entire reason Title IX was enacted, to give girls and women an equal opportunity to compete in athletics and be protected from sexual harassment. I also rise on behalf of millions of women who have fought for civil rights, many of whom who have suffered from sexual assault or harassment. 2 of these women, Riley Gaines and Peyton McNabb, had the courage to testify before members of this very body and faced further public insult for telling their story of the abuse they endured. This is not just about losing first place in a sport. No girl or woman should have to wonder if she'll be changing in a locker room where male genitalia are exposed. No girl should have to be afraid of suffering life-altering injuries during competition. Finally, I rise on behalf of the 112,000 high school female athletes in Michigan, one of them being my daughter. Some opponents of this bill have highlighted how few biological males there are competing in girls' sports in Michigan today. Well, that may be. It only took 1 biological man to enter the women's locker room at the 2022 NCAA Women's Championship and expose himself to all the other women athletes. It only took 1 biological man to knock Peyton McNabb unconscious and cause dramatic brain injury. Every single one of our daughters and female athletes deserves fairness, safety, and dignity on and off the playing field. As my fellow colleague from the 65th District said a few weeks ago, 1 male in female sports is 1 too many. So on behalf of women who fought for equality, for those of us who were able to compete in girls' sports in junior and senior high school, and for all the girls who compete today and in the years to come, please join me in voting for House Bills 4066 and 4469. Thank you.
Representative Branigans. Speaker recognizes, sorry. The Speaker recognizes Representative Branigans.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I have permission to speak to the entire package, please?
So ordered.
Thank you. I stand today in strong opposition of House Bills 4066 and 4469. In the United States of America, when we are at our best, we have expanded rights and freedoms. We have grown economic opportunity, and together we stand up to bullies who want to tear us apart and make us afraid of one another. I truly felt the promise of America when I voted yes last term to expand civil rights in Michigan finally for our lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender residents here after 5 decades of tireless advocacy. Today, Madam Speaker, we are going backwards. These bills tell the children of our state that some can have civil rights, but not all. We are demonizing children with these bills. We are punching down on the most vulnerable in our society, and for what? We cannot claim to be patriots when we are actively discriminating against some of our fellow Americans, especially our children. If we were actually concerned about protecting our children, we would pass budgets that didn't zero out HHS.
Representative, please speak to the merits of the bill. Speaker recognizes Representative Reinigans.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. These bills do not help children. They harm children. This is a choice that we are making to roll back progress and rights for kids in our state. As a mother, I will not stand for this, and I demand a no vote.
Speaker recognizes Representative St. Germain.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand in support of House Bill 4066. When I was a little kid, there was this really cool movement, I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar. It was like women's empowerment was the coolest thing since sliced bread. Now some of my colleagues on the left, they want to go backwards, and they're okay with that. I don't. If you've ever been a real girl trying to crush it in a sport or raise a daughter who's a total rock star athlete, then I guess maybe some just don't get it. My mini-me, my daughter, was a state and high school champion. She sacrificed like crazy, 5 a.m. swim practices. We went back again, 5 p.m. practices. All summer, she didn't get to hang out with her friends. Sometimes she cried, and I made her get in the car, and my husband and I would take turns driving her to the pool. It was tough, but it was worth it. Now, as her mom, I stand here today against some mediocre dude coming along and possibly erasing her name and record from her high school pool record board. I never thought I'd see the day when women would say that this is okay and be erased. Some of my colleagues say this is bullying. Bullying is telling a little girl they need to undress in front of a biological boy. My daughter would have been petrified. Hear me roar as I urge a yes vote on House Bill 4066. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Devendorf.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Permission to speak to the entire package.
So ordered.
Thank you. I stand here today in strong opposition to House Bills 4066 and 4469, a package that aims to discriminate against children and roll back civil rights protected by the Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act. Specifically, House Bill 4469 would erode Michiganders' civil rights by amending ELCRA. I address the chamber today with no abstract or manufactured self-righteousness. This is not just a philosophical debate to me, or merely symbolic of my moral compass. Even as this debate speaks to and contradicts morals and ethics we all contend to share. I have dedicated my career to civil rights and justice, to youth advocacy. I have stood outside these chambers with transgender and non-binary kids who were pleading for the adults in the room to protect them at school. I have stood with LGBT youth as they acted out their bullying on the Capitol lawn in pouring rain because legislators would not allow them to take up space in the Capitol rotunda in their house. I have sat with parents and educators after losing our youth to the world. Real pain that was made intolerable through exclusion. I have had enough. I'm angry, and I'm soul tired, but I remain undaunted. This bill is blatantly discriminatory against kids. It makes girls across the board, not exclusively transgender and non-binary children, pawns in an absurd and degrading debate about human value. I am sick and tired of all that is being done to try to divide people, all that is being done out of cruelty. Being a kid is hard enough. All kids should be able to participate in sports for the same reasons as anyone else. Invaluable lessons of teamwork and discipline, lifelong friendships, and physical and mental health benefits. This legislation is a threat to all kids. It erodes kids' civil rights by allowing unequal access to protection under the law for every young girl who does not appear stereotypically feminine. These bills would embolden people to unabashedly target and question the gender of girls who do not fit their standard of femininity, justifying the harassment and bullying of children by grown adults, all based on how they look. This kind of legislation can also be used as a tool of racial discrimination, as people could unfairly weaponize it against young girls arbitrarily and motivated by bias. These bills do nothing to help Michigan families, but they do walk back civil rights and target kids. Participating in sports teaches important values like perseverance, dedication, self-assurance, and teamwork. I know, as a former athlete, I played high school football. No, not kicker. Wide receiver and corner. I wasn't the best player on the team because despite years of trying, I wasn't allowed to play until much later than the other kids, and I lacked practice. But I held my own. I did not play volleyball because I'm 5'4" and usually with help. There was a freshman girl, however, who played football at Kalamazoo Central after I did. She was a lineman, and she was formidable. I also played golf because I wanted to learn. I don't know that my teammates appreciated my joining the team to learn, but it was understood that my expertise wasn't the point. The experience was. We were kids, and there was room for all of us. We should focus on passing bills that build kids up, not tear them down. We could choose to fight against bullying by strengthening anti-bullying policies instead of picking fights with our kids and destroying their spirits. Legislators should ensure fundamental rights and protections for all and ensure each child can grow and thrive in Michigan. We should be letting our kids be kids. That is what love looks like. That is how we raise resilient kids to become successful adults. These bills promote bullying and harassment against children. They violate the civil rights of children, and they do absolutely nothing for our public schools. This legislation is created around questionable science, questionable polling, and it empowers the more questionable sides of human nature. Michigan kids do not need politicians making their lives even harder by singling them out. No adult should encourage the bullying and harassment of our kids. For that, I strongly urge a no vote on this package. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Slaw.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Permission to speak on the entire package.
So ordered.
Colleagues, for me, this is an 80-20 issue. Just this year, the New York Times polled the Americans about this particular issue, and 80% of those polled, including 67% who lean Democrat, oppose biological males who identify as women participating in women's sports. I'd urge you to join me and the 80% of our public in supporting these bills.
Speaker recognizes Representative Lentine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Permission to speak to the entire package.
So ordered.
I rise today disappointed that this legislation is even necessary. House Bill 4469 is not complex and it should not be controversial. There are, in fact, biological differences between men and women, and those differences matter, especially when it comes to the integrity of women's sports. As a young woman who participated in many sports growing up, this is personal. And granted, it was not all that long ago. I remember vividly the hard work, the hours, the time, and the energy I put into every sport I played. I remember the nerves that led up to each game day and tournament. I watched my friends pour their hearts into their sports and even go on to participate in college athletics, some on scholarships because of their hard work and their talent. I now have the joy of spending the occasional Saturday morning supporting my 7-year-old little sister at her soccer games. The little girls I see running around the soccer fields deserve the same opportunity and protection that I had growing up. It's unacceptable and heartbreaking that these girls could have their dreams crushed because Michigan wasn't there to protect them. It is unacceptable that they could be stripped of a trophy like Riley Gaines. It's unacceptable that they could be injured to the point of a brain bleed during a volleyball game like Peyton McNabb. This legislation would update the law to help ensure that Michigan is compliant with federal directives surrounding Title IX and gives local school districts the clarity and authority to enforce policies that protect girls' athletics. Right now, schools could be prohibited from enforcing policies like the one introduced by my colleague from the 50th District, labeling it discriminatory. If you want to label standing up for young girls as discriminatory, you can do that. But it sends a loud and clear message that you care more about the law protecting someone's feelings than the law protecting the safety, opportunity, and well-being of our young girls. Today, I ask my colleagues to join me in standing up for the rights and opportunities of girls across our state and vote yes on this critical legislation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Speaker recognizes Representative Wolford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to begin by citing a report issued by the United Nations, a body that certainly does not support to have traditional views on gender and even claims to champion LGBTQ plus cause. They are certainly not friends of a simple, self-evident view that men are men and women are women. Yet, they issued a report last year titled Violence Against Women in Girls Sports that has documented nearly 900 instances of female athletes losing trophies, medals, and commendations to competitors who were biological males. I begin with this report because I want to dispel the notion that we have heard repeatedly from critics of common sense that this legislation addresses a non-existent problem or capitalized on the trumped-up culture war issues or even targets the marginalized youth. The real victims are the young women and girls who even the United Nations acknowledges have had equal opportunities in athletics taken from them, scholarships that they may have depended on for their livelihood given to undeserving male peers, and recognitions and accomplishments for they have expanded so much time, effort, emotional energy in trying to achieve, all being stripped away. I've said from the State House to the White House, we have seen leaders step up on behalf of these young women and girls who've let down time and time again by those who were responsible for their protection. Because we recognize that this is a real issue. This is really happening, and it's happening even here in our own state. We know for a fact that even in Michigan, girls are being forced to compete against opponents that are mountains, that have mountains of scientific literature, all unequivocally saying that they have far more lung capacity, bone density, muscle mass, and weight-bearing abilities. We know for a fact that young women and girls are being forced to share a locker room and being forced to unclothe in front of an anatomically correct male. We know for a fact that young women are being hurt and losing out on opportunities because we do not have policies in place or legislation to implement. And for my colleagues looking for evidence of these claims, they would have to look no further than just last week, when they had two young women who were directly impacted by men invading their athletics, testifying in support of this legislation. One of them, Riley Gaines, who I would assume that we all know who she is or familiar with her story. The other is Peyton McNabb, who made national headlines just a couple of years ago after she suffered a traumatic brain injury during a high school volleyball game when a biological male spiked the ball in her face. She was knocked unconscious. And I want you to listen to this today, colleagues, lawmakers. She was knocked unconscious and rushed to the hospital, where she was discovered to have a concussion and internal brain bleed. Peyton shared with us how she and her teammates were never asked whether they would be willing to compete against a male athlete, no one intervened to protect them. No one stood up for them. And it was about lasting health consequences that she has suffered from her injury. Just 2 years after the incident, Peyton still suffers from partial paralysis, chronic headaches, vision impairments, and other conditions that her doctors say that she will certainly not ever recover from. Here in Michigan, we have 112,000 high school female athletes. And the parents of all of those 112,000 girls have no certainty that their children will not suffer the same harm that Peyton McNabb and her teammates have faced. So let me reiterate that the mothers and the fathers of these 112,000 high school female athletes in Michigan have no guarantee that their daughters will not be forced to share a locker room with males or be forced to compete against much larger, stronger, and aggressive athletic opponents. When Peyton McNabb was here in Michigan last week, she aptly pointed out that she would not have to spend her time, she would appreciate not having to spend her time flying around the country trying to convince elected officials to keep men out of women's sports. The fact that this is happening here in Michigan is a damning indictment of both the Michigan High School Athletic Association for permitting men in women's sports divisions and the state politicians that have so far refused to address this issue. Now, Peyton's school didn't step up to protect her. The Athletes Association in her state didn't step up to protect her. Her coaches did not step up to protect her. And her elected lawmakers didn't step up to protect her. But that ends today. It ends now. None of us need to be female athletes to understand that we have a responsibility to protect female athletes, similar to how none of us need to be a fireman to recognize the need to save someone from a burning building. After all, we're here today about identity. And so I close as I identify as a number of things: a patriot, a veteran, a lawmaker, but most importantly, I identify as a father, a husband, and a human being that has decided that we will no longer stand by and allow young ladies to be attacked. This abdication of duty by the people charged with ensuring the well-being of young women is appalling, and it must end today. Today, I'm urging my colleagues to recognize their responsibility, not as a Republican, not as a Democrat, but as an elected representative of the people to protect the girls competing in Michigan high school sports. I'm urging my colleagues to vote in favor of this legislation. Thank you. God bless.
The question before the House is the passage of the bill. A record roll call vote is required. All those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed, nay. The clerk will open the board. Speaker recognizes Minority Floor Leader Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to excuse Representative Liberati.
So ordered. The clerk will close the board. Representative Neely votes nay. The clerk will tally, display, and announce. Excuse me. Representative O'Neill votes nay. The clerk will tally, display, and announce the vote.
Madam Speaker, the question of final passage of House Bill 4066, there are 58 aye votes and 46 nay votes.
A majority of the members elected and serving having voted in favor, therefore, the bill has passed. Speaker recognizes Majority Floor Leader Postumus.
Move for immediate effect.
The Majority Floor Leader moves for immediate effect. All those in favor will rise. Immediate effect is ordered. Speaker recognizes Majority Floor Leader Postumus.
Continuing on the order of third reading of bills, I move that the House take up calendar item number 5, House Bill 4469.
Without objection, so ordered. The clerk will read.
Calendar item number 5, House Bill 4469, introduced by Representative Linting, a bill to amend the Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act. People of the State of Michigan enact.
The bill will be considered read for a third time by its title. Are there amendments? There being no amendments, the question before the House is the passage of the bill. A record roll call vote is required. All those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed, nay. The clerk will open the board. Members, the board is still open. You may vote at your desks. The clerk will close the board. Representative Leitner votes. Representative Leitner votes aye. The clerk will tally, display, and announce the vote.
Madam Speaker, on the question of final passage of House Bill 4469, there are 59 aye votes and 45 nay votes.
A majority of the members elected and serving having voted in favor, therefore, the bill has passed. Speaker recognizes Majority Floor Leader Postumus.
Move for immediate effect.
The Majority Floor Leader moves for immediate effect. All those in favor will rise. Immediate effect is ordered. For the purposes of introduction, Speaker recognizes Representative Miller.
Hello, everyone. Let's give a warm welcome to Edgemont Elementary School. From Belleville, they have 23 students and 14 adults. Let's give them a round of applause, shall we? Thank you.
Will the special guest of Representative Miller please rise? Welcome to the Michigan House of Representatives. For the purposes of an introduction, the Speaker recognizes Representative Shriver.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I've got 22 students, 13 adults from Washington, Michigan, in the Southwest Gallery. They're here from Indian Hills Elementary.
The special guest of Representative Shriver please rise and welcome to the Michigan House of Representatives. The Speaker recognizes Majority Floor Leader Postumus.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House proceed to the order of motions and resolutions and take up House Resolution 114.
Without objection, so ordered. The clerk will read.
House Resolution number 114, introduced by Representative Harris, a resolution to declare May 22nd, 2025 as Stop the Bleed Day in the state of Michigan.
Speaker recognizes Representative Harris.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We rise today in support of my resolution, H.R. 114, to declare today, May 22nd, 2025, Stop the Bleed Day in the state of Michigan. When I served as a police sergeant and an EMT, I saw firsthand how quickly a life can be tragically lost to uncontrolled bleeding. I also saw how quickly a life can be heroically saved when someone nearby knew what to do. Whether it's a car crash, an accident on the job, or an act of violence, these emergencies strike without warning. For many wounds, blood loss is a very preventable cause of death. And thankfully, it doesn't take an EMT or a paramedic to stop the bleed and save a life. In an emergency, those first few minutes before professional help arrives are vital. Stop the Bleed training gives ordinary people the knowledge and confidence to act. This training teaches techniques for applying pressure, using tourniquets, packing a wound, so that everyone, teachers, students, parents, coworkers, friends, and even state representatives, can become an immediate responder. These simple skills are easy to learn, but they make all the difference. Today, by recognizing the National Stop the Bleed campaign, we are raising awareness. We promote bleeding control training. We encourage Michiganders across the state to learn how to prevent blood loss, and we honor those who have already stepped up, often in the most difficult circumstances, to save the life of others. Stop the Bleed Day encourages everyone to be ready, because when emergencies happen, readiness saves lives. I ask my colleagues to support this resolution and help us spread the word about Stop the Bleed. And this resolution, Madam Speaker, is available for co-sponsorship on the electronic calendar. Thank you.
The question before the House is that the adoption of House Resolution 114. All those in favor of the resolution will say aye. Those opposed, nay. The resolution is adopted. Speaker recognizes Majority Floor Leader Postumus.
Continuing on the order of motions and resolutions, I move that the House take up House Resolution 115.
Without objection, so ordered. The clerk will read.
House Resolution number 115, introduced by Representative Menser, a resolution to urge the President of the United States and the United States Congress to fully fund Medicaid and to reject any proposal that would strip access to those in need and shifts costs onto states, healthcare providers, and vulnerable individuals.
The resolution is referred to the Committee on Government Operations. Speaker recognizes Majority Floor Leader Postumus.
Continuing on the order of motions and resolutions, I move that the House take up House Resolution 116.
Without objection, so ordered. The clerk will read.
House Resolution number 116, introduced by Representative Frisbee, a resolution to declare May 24th, 2025 as National Aviation Maintenance Technician Day in the state of Michigan.
The question before the House is on the adoption of House Resolution 116. All those in favor of the resolution will say aye. Those opposed, nay. The resolution is adopted. Speaker recognizes Majority Floor Leader Postumus.
Just to let the members know, there will be no further voting today. When the House adjourns, it stands adjourned until Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025 at 1:30 p.m.
The House will stand at ease at the call of the chair.
There being no further business to come before the House, Representative Paquette moves that the House do now adjourn. Hearing no objection, the House will stand adjourned until Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025 at 1:30 p.m.